Filmmaker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo and we're here at the Cameras Los Angeles showing in West Hollywood, and I'm here with Christopher Folkens with his movie Trigger. Let's take a look at the clip.
Dad, please. Do you think it's easy for us? You think I chose this?
How long is this? Have you known?
All right, give me 5 reasons why I should.
Christopher, congratulations on Trigger and great to have you here in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a brief synopsis of your film.
So Trigger follows the story of Kevin, a young man who recently just came out to his parents, and it didn't go very well. And when we open on the film, we're actually in his apartment with him as he's battling these warring thoughts that put him on the verge of suicide. And we're essentially, along in his point of view as he's flashing back to these visceral and gut-wrenching emotions that have kind of led him to this point.
Yeah.
And then an unsuspecting friend shows up at his door, and Kevin must face his past in order to really reinvent himself and change his future. So.
It was a beautifully shot film, and
Thank you.
really, just a lot of emotion in there, and you really felt and followed his journey. How did you come about the idea?
Well, so I actually lost a friend to suicide, a very close family friend of ours. And this was back in 2001 when I was a freshman in college, and it was my brother's best friend. And he's one of the guys that I actually dedicated the film to. And then also several years later, I ended up talking another friend out of suicide. And so this has been something that kept showing up in my life, and I was like, I need to do something as a filmmaker to make a difference in the world and to save lives. And so what better way to do that than to tell stories that really create this emotional catharsis, and either can speak directly to people who might be on the verge of suicide or to the rest of the populace of how we can show up in a different way that may make a difference and that really might pull someone off the edge, if that makes sense.
Oh wow, that is amazing that you're making films out, and especially when you've been through an experience yourself with your friend, and then to actually make this film to sort of help others. And I think that's an incredible thing that you can do as a filmmaker, and congratulations to you on that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
It's really amazing. How did you come about, finding, that character to play that role?
You mean the cast?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult
Yeah.
play. How did that come about for you?
Well, both roles were interesting. Both of the two male leads were very interesting in the sense that, we did a casting process, and it ultimately came down to somebody that I had seen a test screening of his film. Nick, the guy who played Kevin, had only been in like one film prior to when I was working with him on Trigger, but one of the executive producers on Trigger, Steven Berger, had just produced a film called Summer of 8, I think is the name that they're going by now. And Nick Marini was in that, and so I had happened to see a focus group kind of test screening of it. And I was really actually impressed, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll bring him in to come and be a part of the casting session, and he just blew us out of the water. We literally were like hugging everybody after the. It was like, yeah, it was, yeah, and it was beautiful to watch him work, and just like he took direction well, and it was just very easy to work with, and really dropped in and didn't wait for someone else to hold his hand to get there. He just made it happen, and it just felt so real and authentic, which is exactly what you needed, because we wanted to avoid that over sentimentality or kind of melodrama that's so easy to kind of get to on films like this. And so it was like we saw that natural, that naturalism in his performance that I think really just translates on screen in the final thing, because it needs to be nuanced. It needs to be really, subtle layers and colors instead of trying to force something.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And you have, obviously the film has got a very poetic feel to it as well. Was that something you wanted intentional? There's amazing scenes, by the sea, and then him just kind of in his thoughts. Is that something you wanted to explore for an audience member?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely feel like the direction and how I chose to direct the overall like visual storytelling aspect of it, and also in terms of the edit, was very deliberate in the sense that the first half of the movie, up until the friend shows up at the door, where things kind of shift.
Yeah.
That's all very frenetic and very kind of chaotic and emotional, and even the music and all the editing is very abrupt and in your face a bit more, because I wanted to put the audience in the point of view of this character of Kevin, who's on the verge, and so we needed to feel along with him as how, as those memories are showing up, we're along for that ride, and then when the friend shows up at the door, it pulls him back into reality, and so the way I shoot it is much more static or linear and kind of motivated camera moves instead of unmotivated camera moves, and the editing is a bit more, coming back to reality. Yeah. So it's all subtle little details, but yeah, I mean, everything's poetry, everything is that, and that's one of the things that stayed the same over the course of the last few years that has that it's taken to develop this project, was that idea of that kind of poetry of the Bible verse and how things are kind of woven together with the suicide letter and and the piece of music that we licensed from Eric Whitaker, who's one of the world's foremost choral composers. And he was actually at our premiere at Beverly Hills Film Festival, which is incredible, and he was just absolutely blown away by the movie. So that was really, really awesome.
What is it like to have your film, after all the hard work you've made, to have your film selected for NewFilmmakers Los Angeles?
It was great. I mean, honestly, it's always special sharing it in front of audiences everywhere. And to see people's emotional reactions with it, and to see that it's moved people, and I think that the audience that we had there was just really, really touched by it, and that's always just a very, it confirms, why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I believe that message will be taken out into the world, and someone will then make a difference in multiple other people's lives because they saw something.
Well, I think
that's
it's
huge.
remarkable that you've done that, and I also think it's fantastic because. I think this film does need to be celebrated with many, many audiences, and particularly people that are going through, such difficult times in their lives. So it's a great credit to you, and hopefully you will continue to save lives. But what's next for you, Christopher?
What's next? That's actually interesting. I have a couple different feature films that I'm attached to direct. They're in various stages of development. One of them we're out to cast, and we're just waiting to hear back. And then I'm also looking at possibilities of how I can develop Trigger into a feature. Which would be I don't think this one individual storyline would be enough to kind of spread out into a whole thing, but I'm looking at ways of kind of building a bit of more of an ensemble cast to kind of weave different storylines together and make it into something that's a much larger, more broad picture.
Well, we look forward to that.
Thank you.
And thank you for your work so far. We look forward to seeing you.
I appreciate it.
Congratulations on Trigger.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.